channel. Today I'm finally getting up my part 2 of the Lancome Battle of the Foundations. I had every intention of getting this up last Friday, and my sweet dear husband was trying to make room for me on my Mac laptop and proceeded to delete every video file that I had. Not just the Lancome video, but 4 other videos that I had pre-filmed for y'all. Oh me. So that's where we're at. That's why we're doing this a week after I had planned on it. But today we are talking about the Lancome Teint Ultra 24-hour makeup and the Lancome Renergie Lift makeup. Of course, I would not have one of these on my face in the intro, but I am on my 3rd day of a foundation review, taking notes for y'all, so I just couldn't fit it in. There's too much new stuff that I'm trying right now. But I have used both of these. I've had them for about 6 weeks now, and I've had this one for way longer than 6 weeks. I've had this for 6 weeks. I've used both of them at least 10 times. So I have a lot of opinions and thoughts on them. So I'm going to just not waste any time. I'm going to go ahead and get into the demo of each one, and I'll come back at the end and tell you my final thoughts. Okay, so today we're going to do the Lancome Teint Ultra 24-hour makeup. Apparently I have like a whole gaggle of frogs in my throat today. This retails for $47, and it's the standard 1-ounce packaging. It does come with a pump. I'm in the color 230 Buff W, and they have 40 shades of this foundation, which I think is big applause for Lancome. You cannot get better than that in shade range. I think Lancome really does well in the shades that they offer in their foundations. This is an oil-free, long-wearing liquid foundation. It claims to have a velvety matte finish and last up to 24 hours. It also says that it's formulated with a color true NAI pigments that maintains your skin's pH level so that the color stays put all day long. I don't really know what that means. I don't know if it's just kind of like marketing or what, but they say that that's what it has. It doesn't need to be retouched, and it's transfer resistant. And it's also infused with perlite and silica absorbing oil for a shine-free wear. I did do, the first time I filmed this, I did do a flash test, so I'll insert a picture, I don't know where, somewhere probably at the end of the video, but I did do that because it does have an SPF of 15. So I have already primed with my Lancome Le Base Pro, like I have with everything, and I've color corrected. So now I'm just going to take 2 pumps. This is the consistency. It is running down my hand, but it's not running down fast. So I would say it's like not a thick moussey texture by any means, but it's definitely not watery either. So I'm just going to apply this with my Beauty Junkie sponge. I will say that I prefer this with a sponge. It's not watery enough, I guess, for me to like it with a brush. I do prefer thinner consistencies with brushes, and I feel like this blends out better with a beauty blender, but I am going to show you on the other side. I put the lighting down a little bit. I felt like I was a little bright there for a second. I might still be, but I am going to show you a brush on the other side just so you can see. It's not that it's a bad application. It's just not one that I prefer. Now, as far as with the sponge, it blended out very nicely. There's just a little tiny bit of redness here, but we're going to build up on that in just a minute. So now I'm going to go on the other side and use my Zoeva 102 Silk Finish brush, and I just stipple that in. I don't really like to buff so much with a brush, so I don't feel like, I actually with this foundation feel like I can get a higher coverage with a sponge than a brush. Normally that's not the case. Normally it's opposite. I feel like I get a better coverage with the brush, but something about this foundation, I don't know, I just feel like it goes on better with the sponge. You know, I still have, like I said, some redness over here, but there's no streaks. So if you are a foundation brush person, this foundation will work for you, no problem. I'm going to take one more pump because I did use almost all of that, and I'm just going to go over the areas that have a little bit more redness, which is just right here on my cheeks. That's most of the time where it is. For people, sometimes people have a lot around their nose, but I'm just going to show you that you can build it up to what I do consider a very strong medium finish. I'm not going to say, I mean, I guess it's full coverage, but it's not like a flat mask like full coverage, which is good because I don't think anybody goes into Sephora saying, I'd like to look like I have a mask on. Please direct me to the foundation that will get me that result. So really, if you don't have like a lot of redness or a ton of stuff to cover, you're not going to need more than 2 pumps. I only used half of that last pump. So you're not having to use an excessive amount of foundation to get the coverage that you're probably going to desire. So this is it right here. I don't know if you can see. I feel like it does not accentuate my pores at all. It's not caking up anywhere. I don't know if you can see right here. I do have a couple of, I'm gonna call them freckles, but you know, they're sunspots probably. And I can still see them through the foundation. And I have one over here. I have one over here. I can still see them through, but I'm okay with that. I don't want to completely mask every stitch of skin that I have. But you can just see it is not a flat matte finish. I would say it's a demi-matte because it's not luminous by any means. And I wouldn't even go so far as to say it's natural, but it's not flat. Like I'm not looking at my face being like, man, look at that makeup on my face. So I'm going to finish my makeup and I'll be right back. All right, so I finished my makeup. Everything went on very smoothly. Nothing budged when I did my cream products, and I feel like everything's laying on my face nicely. I feel like I have to hunch down. Obviously, my kids have been messing with my tripod. Again, I use the Chanel powder, like with all of these. And I don't know, I think the pores look good. I think it doesn't look cakey. Like, I mean, I can tell I have makeup on my face as far as like the foundation, but it's not offensive, I don't feel like. So I'm gonna go throughout the day, and I will definitely talk to you later at the end of the video about the longevity, because I feel like that is something that they really, really, really push with this, considering 24-hour makeup is in the name and in the claims and everything. So I'm definitely gonna talk to you about longevity. It's definitely not the first time I've tried this. I've had this for months, but I do have 4 clients today, and I'm going to be going back and forth, so it's going to be a good test to how long it stays on my face, because quite honestly, I get really hot when I work. So we'll see how it holds up, but I will talk about all of my final feelings at the end of the video. But until then, this is the Lancome Teint Idol Ultra 24-hour makeup. And again, I'm in the color 230 Buff W. So today we are going to talk about the Lancome Renergie Lift Makeup Broad Spectrum SPF 20. It claims to be a lifting and anti-wrinkle radiance makeup. It does say that it's best suited for normal to dry skin. It's $47 for 1 ounce, and it comes in 18 colors. I have the color 320 C25W. Don't even ask me what all that means. I know the W stands for warm. That's about it. The benefits real quick. Says it instantly lifts away the appearance of lines and fights against wrinkles. It has vitamin E complex. It lets skin breathe. Prevents makeup from settling into lines. Skin looks smoother, feels firmer. Erases signs of fatigue. Protects from environmental damage. Moisturizes. Micro Lift Network, an extra fine dispersion of waxes, forms an imperceptible shaping network on the surface of the skin. They make it sound so luxurious. Flexible micro bubbles act like a nanoscopic flexible pockets of air for skin to breathe and prevent makeup from settling into lines. So it's all about not settling into lines, lifting your face, lifting your wrinkles away, smoothing everything out. We'll have to see if I agree with that. It does come with a pump. It's, you know, it's nothing special. Whatever. I don't care if the pump is like a 50-cent pump, as long as it doesn't break and as long as it's there. I appreciate the fact that they did put a pump. When I first got this, I was like, wow, this is really small. Like, it just looks like a small bottle. You think it's going to be bigger. But I also, though, can appreciate the fact that it is so small, and that if I were to travel with it, even though it is glass, that it's not going to take up a ton of room. It's not going to take up a ton of room on my shelf. So I do appreciate the size. Okay, so we have already primed with the Lancome Base Pro and color corrected. So I'm just going to take 2 pumps you know, I use a mitt with my self tanner and it still like goes through the mitt. So that's what it looks like right there. I did a little bit extra because I wanted to show you something in just a minute, but it's, you know, fairly medium in consistency. I'm going to start with a beauty blender or a Beauty Junkie sponge, as always, on this side. I would say this is probably a medium coverage. I don't really think that it gives like a really full coverage. I'm okay with that. But if you have like really problematic skin, it's not going to cover a ton. So this side has the makeup, this side doesn't. So upon like first look, you can't tell a huge difference. I mean, my redness over here is evened out. But again, it's not like a hugely full coverage foundation. I'm going to put a little bit on this side, and I will tell you the pumps don't give out a ton of product, so I probably will need to use more than 2 pumps. And I'm just using my Zoeva Silk Finish, Silk Finish brush. So it goes on fine with a brush. It doesn't really streak, but you know, I prefer a beauty blender. Okay, so I'm gonna pump one more pump out, but I wanna show you something. Can you see the difference? This does oxidize. So that's the one I first pumped it out, and that's the one I just pumped out. So be aware. I mean, that's probably a shade. I mean, it oxidizes like a shade. So just be aware of that when you're choosing colors. I did not see this on the Sephora website. I think it's only on the Ulta website. And then of course, I'm sure you can get it like Lancome counters and stuff. So I don't really find it to be like extremely buildable because I just don't think that it can be built to a full coverage. I think maybe you can build it from a sheer to light to medium coverage because I am able to build a little bit on my redness, but I really honestly don't think you're ever going to get this to a full coverage foundation. That's the foundation once it's all blended out. I would not necessarily say it has a radiant finish, at least upon first application. I think it's just a really pretty natural skin-like finish. It's not matte by any means. It's definitely not flat, but I don't look at myself and think I'm shiny. I feel like I just look like my skin is even out and it looks like skin. So I'm gonna finish up my makeup and I'll show you how everything looks on top of it. All right, so this is the foundation with the rest of my makeup on. I honestly do not think it's a radiant finish. We will see how it wears throughout the day. However, I just feel like it looks like I'm having a really good skin day. There's nothing, you know, nothing caked up. All my cream products and stuff blended out wonderfully. We'll see how this actually works on my laugh lines. That's really the only lines that I have an issue with foundation sinking into. And since this foundation claims to be very like anti-line, I'm gonna see how it works on that. But so far, this is how the Lancome Renergie Lift Makeup looks, and I will be sure and update you on longevity, line sinkage, and final thoughts here in just a second. So my final thoughts on these foundations. We'll start with the Teint Ultra 24-Hour Makeup. This lasts you all day long. I would venture to say if I did wear it for 24 hours, if I was up that long, because I never recommend sleeping in your makeup, I would venture to say that it would last fine for the 24 hours. The longest that I wore it was 16 hours, and it looked spot on at the end of the day. The only thing I will say is that it does have a tendency to kind of sink into my smile lines if I wear it over a certain amount of time, but that's nothing that a little touch-up won't fix. I don't have to touch it up as far as like getting shiny or even after a workout. Like I don't feel like I have to touch this up. And I like this one because I feel like all powders work well with it. I don't feel like it's so flat and matte that you can't use a mattifying powder. I definitely would not suggest using like a powder foundation. I'm not a fan of that at all over foundations, but like my more mattifying powders like my By Terry Hyaluronic Hydro Blur powder works great with this, but it's also a foundation that I feel confident using a luminous powder over. So for example, my Lancome Absolute is a luminous powder. It has, I mean, it has like shimmer in it, for lack of a better term, but it looks great with this because this is mattifying enough to be able to handle that on top of it. I obviously think this is best suited for oily skin. If you have super dry skin, you're probably not going to like this, but it's not heavy on the skin. I find the Estee Lauder Double Wear to be heavier on the skin than this one. Another thing I love about this is that it's an amazing mixer for foundations. It did make a debut in my favorite foundation mixologies or my favorite foundation combo videos. I love mixing this with the Charlotte Tilbury Light Wonder foundation, but it's also great with really any other maybe like lighter weight luminous foundation to kind of get the staying powder but not sacrifice the finish. For instance, when I use it with the Charlotte Tilbury, it doesn't make it so matte that it takes away from the gorgeous finish of the Charlotte Tilbury. It tones down the dewiness a bit, but it's in no way flat. So that's why I feel like this is a great mixer for a ton of other foundations. And finally, I don't feel like it settled into my pores, accentuated my pores, anything like that. I honestly think this is an amazing substitute, alternative to the Estee Lauder Double Wear. I know that's a cult favorite. This one I feel like is just as good. It does have the SPF 15. I think I put the flashback picture in the demo part. I didn't find that it had any flashback, but I think that that also depends on the person and the powders and the other stuff used, so you might just want to try that for yourself. But it's really good. I do highly recommend this, especially if you have normal to oily skin. Now, the Renergie Lift Makeup Broad Spectrum SPF 20. You'd think that I would have done a flashback photo on this, but I did not. This claims to be for normal to dry skin. I find that that's true, but I also think that even if you're oily in the T-zone, if you prime properly, you could totally get away with this, because I don't find that it's like super luminous and super dewy. I just think it's a really pretty skin-like finish. It is line smoothing for sure. This does not, I have worn this up to 15 hours. It does not settle into my lines at all. Like, I was amazed the first couple times I wore it and looked in the mirror at the end of the day, and I'm like, it's like there's no foundation on my skin, and that attributes to the skin-like look. I think the more skin-looking your foundation is, the less it's going to settle, because you're not seeing the foundation on your skin. So, I don't know, it doesn't settle. It doesn't settle. And I can't say for lines on my forehead because, I mean, Botox takes care of that for me, but I feel like if the smile lines are any indication, it would not settle into many other lines at all. So if you do have more mature skin, you do find that you're starting to accumulate a little more lines and wrinkles than you may want on your face, I think this would be amazing because it will not settle. It doesn't sink into your pores. It's along the same lines with the settling into the lines. It's not going to settle into your pores either. It sits on top of your skin without looking like it's sitting on top of your skin, if that makes sense. I would say this does not get above a medium finish, where the Teint Idol Ultra is a medium to full finish. I think this is a light to medium finish. Not finish, coverage. But I still think that you're going to be able to cover up more than you may think you will. Unless you have super, super, super problematic skin, I think you would like this. And even if you do, I think if you spot conceal before or after, whichever you choose, it's still a good alternative. Honestly, I don't know what else to say about this. It looks like skin. It feels like skin. You don't feel makeup on your face. It's not heavy. It's the perfect consistency. It has a large color range. It does oxidize. I talked about that in the demo, so do be aware of that. But here's the little example. I know I talked about how small the bottle was. These both have the same amount of product in it, which just is crazy to me. But I don't know what I would say if I had to pick between these two as to which one is my favorite. I would probably go with the Renergie Lift, only because I am not huge into matte foundations, although this has become the one that I wear a lot when I'm working, because I need something that's going to hold up through heat. And I've told y'all before, I sweat. I don't sweat, but I get really hot while I'm working, and this holds up so well. But then so does this. It's just all going to be a matter of preference. But I just think overall, out of all the 4 of the foundations that I've tried from Lancome, this is probably going to come out as my favorite, the Renergie Lift Makeup. It's just really good. It's really good. I highly recommend it. So as always, I am going to leave everything down linked in the description box. I'll also tell you what I'm wearing today, even though it's not one of these, because that would have made sense. And not often do I make sense. So I hope that this kind of put a big bow and wrapped up this foundation battle of the Lancome foundations. I am going to get rid of the stick foundation. All in all, I'm going to get rid of that one, sell it because I can't return it. But 3, I'm really, really enjoying. So if you have any questions, as always, leave them down in the comment section. I will put as much information as I can in the description box. I really appreciate y'all watching. Be sure and like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, have a very blessed day.